If we're honest, we're all a little fearful to let people know how we really feel and think. And many of us have good reason for it. Some of us fear being misunderstood, others fear damaging a relationship, or even feeling rejection. And if you're anything like me, you just don't want to feel vulnerable. I get it. But if there's one thing I know, when we don't have honest spaces to share, we run from each other instead of towards each other, and we don't grow. And we all want to grow, right? We need safe spaces to process tough and awkward conversations, to push through our fears, discomfort, and apathy. And when we do this, we not only become better people, but we also create positive change. Friends, my name is Trevor Jenkins, and I am the founder of Unfiltered Conversations, which is an amazing experience and framework that guides people through discussing sensitive topics. And this podcast is a continuation of those topics. And as the founder, my desire is to answer thought-provoking questions by sharing real-life stories. And my hope is that you would engage these questions and share your own stories as well. But most importantly, that you would create positive change. Welcome to the Unfiltered Conversation podcast. On September 5th, 2018, during the confirmation hearings of now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, Senator Kamala Harris pushed Brett Kavanaugh to answer questions about abortion rights. Senator Harris asked the question, "Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?" Let's take a listen to Justice Kavanaugh's response.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm happy to answer a more specific question, but
Male versus female.
there are medical procedures.
Okay? That the government has the power to make a decision about a man's body?
I thought you were asking about medical procedures
No,
that are unique to men.
I'll repeat the question. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
Justice Kavanaugh seemed to struggle to grasp the question at first. Then he answered he could not think of any. When it comes to the issue of abortion in this country, the conversation is always framed around women's reproductive rights and what they should be able to do or should not be able to do with their bodies. But as we just heard from Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, there are no laws that center around men's reproductive rights. Now, this doesn't speak less of Justice Kavanaugh, but what it does say is, at times women are not treated equally as men, and is subliminally woven into the fabric of our judiciary. Now, I really want to be sensitive to this conversation. Abortion is emotionally complex and traumatic. There's an emotional experience that happens between a mother and a child. Feelings of fear, confusion, anger, blame, guilt, shame, all are there. However, for many women, there's also a feeling of relief. Before we move any further in today's podcast, I want to be clear. The objective of today's episode is not to argue if abortion is ethical or unethical. You are entitled to your convictions and opinions. I also want to say that I'm not trying to bash men. There are a lot of great men who have taken on children that are not their own. With all that being said, the objective of this podcast is to focus on men's role in unwanted pregnancies and discuss why our society is harder on women when it comes to abortion, while men are given a pass. Our society centers 100% of the conversation and responsibility around women's reproductive rights. Growing up as a kid, I remember watching movies or even hearing friends and relatives become more disappointed in the girl who came home pregnant than the guy who got the girl pregnant. And many of you may have seen and experienced this as well. I remember hearing people say the difference in a woman getting pregnant versus a man getting a woman pregnant is that the woman brings home the baby, as if it was some visual reminder of shame. Now, I couldn't articulate this then like I can now, but it was one of the first examples of male privilege that I actually understood. Subconsciously, what this taught me was to be thankful that I was a male and not a female. Because for some reason, our society is more protective of the reputation of our sons than the reputations of our daughters. And the Me Too movement helped expose this truth. We put more shame on our daughters who bring home babies than the sons who get them pregnant. And we put more shame on women who get abortions than the men who encourage or even pay for them. And when our sons and daughters grow up to be men and women, the same thing occurs. We protest in front of abortion clinics, but we don't protest in front of frat houses and C-suites, where many of these unwanted pregnancies are initiated by men looking for flings. When it comes to dealing with unwanted pregnancies, men get off easy. We panic, deny our responsibility, and go missing because we're just not ready. A mother of 6 and a New York Times bestselling author is trying to reframe the conversation around abortion by holding men more responsible. Author Gabrielle Blair says, if you want to stop abortion, you need to prevent unwanted pregnancies. And men are more often than not responsible for unwanted pregnancies. Blair continues to say, pregnancies can only happen when men have an orgasm, and unwanted pregnancies usually happen when men orgasm irresponsibly. Essentially, Blair is saying most unwanted pregnancies are caused by the irresponsible ejaculation of men. And the reality is, for men, an unwanted pregnancy means forced fatherhood, and forced fatherhood produces runaway dads. And the way our society deals with runaway dads rejecting forced fatherhood is forced motherhood. Women are left to pick up the pieces and given a short few weeks to make one of the most traumatic decisions of their life. It is a heavy burden to bear. A study from the University of California, San Francisco, found that the majority of women feel relief 1 week after having an abortion. 843 women were asked about 6 emotions: relief, happiness, guilt, regret, sadness, and anger. While women reported mixed emotions after an abortion, 90% felt relieved, and more than 80% of women who felt negative emotions still thought they had made the correct choice. Here are a few short stories of women left to pick up the pieces of their life after they broke the news of their pregnancy to their boyfriends. Arissa writes, I thought my boyfriend was the one, but when he found out that I was pregnant, he wanted an abortion. I tried to make him understand that it's not easy for me just to do that. He ended up getting mad and told me that he wants nothing to do with me. He either wanted me to have an abortion or give the baby up for adoption, and that he was willing to sign over his rights. I feel stupid. I know I should choose life, but I don't want to be a single mother. Jennifer writes, I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years, and when I met him, he was going through a divorce. Well, I am pregnant, and his divorce will be final in 2 months. He has 3 children already, and he says the timing is not good. He wants me to get an abortion. I am 29, never been married, and I was for having the child, but now I'm having second thoughts. And last but not least, there's Brittany. I got pregnant and I didn't even know it. I ended up in the ER and I was told I was spotting and I was 5 weeks pregnant. I texted my boyfriend from the hospital what was happening, and his reply was, I'm actually giving up on us. I was heartbroken. I didn't expect him to be so cold. Many of us may not agree on whether abortion is ethical or unethical. But there's one thing both sides can't deny. It takes a man's sperm to make a baby. Unwanted pregnancies often start with men. Our solution to runaway dads rejecting forced fatherhood can't be shaming women into forced motherhood. We have to stop trying to control women's bodies and start holding men more accountable. Far too long, men have been given a pass, and it has been far too easy in this conversation to solely be around women. Friends, my name is Trevor Jenkins. Thank you for listening to the Unfiltered Conversation podcast. And please join the discussion on our Facebook page listed as Unfiltered Conversations Community. Also, if you're listening from iTunes or Google Play, don't forget to rate us and please leave a review. And again, I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic of this podcast. Until the next time, let's keep the conversation going.